Action has created a positive team environment for over 50 years. Apply online at actionlincoln.com.
Everything we do, from our jobs to our hobbies, to the stuff that makes us who we are, all of those things come with a tool of the trade. I'm Trooper White of the Nebraska State Patrol. Wearing your seatbelt can reduce your risk of injury by 50% in a crash. So every time you get in a vehicle, remember to use the tool of the trade, your seatbelt. This message presented by the Nebraska State Patrol and the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beers, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top-shelf liquor to crowd-favorite beer, Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
We've done it, everybody. We've done it. We've got the win. Husker Hoops postgame here on 93.7 The Ticket. I'm Jake Bachman. Austin Orman will jump in with me here in a minute as he heads from Pinnacle Bank Arena. Probably a good little jump in his step as Nebraska gets the win 77-70 over Michigan State. A very good game for Nebraska. Of course, Josiah Alec out to start the game. Nebraska had to make some adjustments. Juwan Gary jumping into the starting lineup, played spectacularly, both on the offense and defensive end, and Nebraska gets their first win over Michigan State since 2016. That was 11 straight losses to Sparty. That is tough for anybody to stomach to begin with when they're watching the broadcast when they started throwing that stat out there. Made you want it just a little bit more. But very important for Nebraska, obviously coming off two games, disappointing outcomes, disappointing in many fashions against Creighton, obviously getting blown out in that game. We built up that one a lot to, it was going to be big if Nebraska could get a victory there. And then just the letdown in Minneapolis, one of the best halves of Nebraska basketball we've seen under Fred Hoiberg, followed by a complete meltdown. And that happened against Michigan State last year. And so you kind of had that, that feeling of, man, we need, this is a very important game. And it's an important game for Michigan State, too. Michigan State, after tonight, falls to 4-5, 0-2 in conference play. Obviously, that's not up to Tom Izzo's standards. It's a good Michigan State team. I don't want to bring it down, the quality of win after Nebraska gets it. Obviously, there's no top 25 ranking next to their name. We kind of know what they were. So it was kind of an opportunity for Nebraska and to protect home court, basically make up for that loss against Minnesota. You're going to have to all conference play to do so, and they do it right away. And maybe this can kind of get the Huskers going. By far the most impressive victory, obviously, for Nebraska this season. Didn't put up a particularly tough schedule. And some people thought maybe that's why they had that hiccup against Creighton. I don't know what to say about Minnesota, but I guess sometimes it's not about taking your beatings. It's what you do once you get your beatings, to get back up and you fight. And that's what Nebraska did tonight. Once again, getting a victory over Michigan State, and really an important one once again, because early in the season, I talked about Michigan State falling to 0-2 in conference play. Obviously, Nebraska's going to rebound here. I have Kansas State coming up. I have two more non-con games. Kind of get this early slate of Big Ten games. And then, roll right into the season. You don't want to start 0-2 before the January conference play starts. And Nebraska's been in that hole before. So they come out, get a win, and improve, obviously, to 8-2 overall, 77-70 Nebraska with the victory tonight. As we kind of look through the stats, leading scorers tonight, already mentioned Juwan Gary, just spectacular play, 20 points, very efficient from the floor, 8 of 11, dinged up his shoulder a little bit, airballed the three when he came back out. So I was a little bit worried about him. And then, grinded it out. I mean, his athleticism, his defensive awareness, jumping in passing lanes, obviously a tough on-ball defender, really led Nebraska. And it makes you wonder, because he's fit really nicely into that six-man role for Nebraska this year. And once again, injury is kind of what brought him back into the starting lineup. He started, all 17 games that he played last year. He's a starter. There's no question about it. It was just kind of like, okay, well, this role in the 6-man could work out, could give you a spark. But if he's going to play like this, then you're going to have to put him in the starting lineup. So that's kind of interesting, something to look forward to if they make any adjustments to the starting lineup once Josiah Alec gets back into play. Keisei Tamanaga, 15 points on 5 of 12 shooting, 3 of 7 from beyond the arc. Pretty good performance from him. Once again, rebounding from not scoring a point against Minnesota. Excuse me, it's not hitting a field goal against Minnesota. It was 4 for 4 from the free throw line, in that game. So he did get 4 points, but good effort by him. Bryce Williams, interesting, as he's got 14 points here in tonight's game. Nebraska was down 34-31 at halftime without Bryce Williams hitting a field goal. Bryce Williams or Jamarcus Lawrence for that matter, but Bryce Williams obviously the key here. Had 17 in the first half against Minnesota. That great first half we were talking about. 1 point in the second half as they melted down. Again, it was kind of one of those things, and it was the Minnesota situation where Nebraska had played so well, but they hadn't gotten any points from Tamanaga. Kind of similar situation tonight with Williams, another one of your leading scorers, where Nebraska only down 3 without Williams scoring. 14 points, I believe. I'd have to double check. I don't think he had any at halftime. So very much turned it on in the second half. Efficient for the free throw line, 5 of 6, 4 of 7 overall from the field. Rink Mast is going to should get more credit. I mean, he hit the dagger basically tonight. Tamanaga hit a few free throws to put Nebraska up 69-67. Mast was waiting in the paint. He was contested. Shot clock was about to go out, and he hits another one to give Nebraska the 71-67 lead. From there on, it was kind of a foul here, foul there. Try to keep Michigan State in the game, but obviously a 2-possession game from then on with under a minute to go. That was kind of what really ultimately gave Nebraska the win. And it's as far as kind of the bucket to put them away. 8 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists. Led the team tonight with 6 assists. Very good. By the way, Nebraska assist turnover ratio, which has been good all season, hasn't been great the last couple nights. Once again, our games out. Once again, back in a good column, 16 assists to 9 turnovers for the Huskers. As that pretty much wraps up your leading scorers there as far as the starters. Another big story that can't be overlooked: C.J. Wilcher, 10 points tonight. Typically a 3-point shooter. He did bank in one as part of a rally early. Hoiberg hit a deep buzzer 3 in the first half, followed by a banked-in 3-pointer from C.J. Wilcher. But when it's your night, it's your night. And that kind of started off a good night for Wilcher. He finished 3 of 5 from the floor, 2 of 4 from beyond the arc. Again, 10 points off the bench. You'll take that every time. And it's, again, about him adding to his game. I mean, he's been doing a great job of cutting to the basket. Did that once again, I think, on a bucket tonight. Very, very physical rebound that the broadcast team gave him a lot of credit for, muscling out. Again, kind of just because of his nature, I guess, or his reputation as the 3-point shooter. Looked really good. So, I mean, that can't be understated. And then, I'm just kind of going through the scoring column, but I'm just kind of giving everybody their props time by time here. Sam Hoiberg finishing out the game, or at least the last important possessions. I didn't see necessarily how many swap outs they did there at the end with free throws and whatnot. But this was a game that Nebraska had taken the lead on in a majority of the second half. Michigan State, this was a lot of lead changes. Don't get me wrong, especially in the first half. 10 first half lead changes. I think we finished with 15 or so in the night. But there was this run for Nebraska where they were able to eventually get it up 7, and through about 15-minute part of the second half. The score, I think the last lead for Michigan at some point was 35-34, and then they did not regain the lead until 67 to 65, I believe. Excuse me, it was the 36-35 was their last lead. When Walker hit his sidestep 3, which was the second of his back-to-back threes, they went up 63-60. My whole point in all that was just to set up that Walker had found his shot. I mean, that's a dangerous shooter, a very good player, obviously. One of the reasons Michigan State was so highly ranked coming into the season, and he's, Michigan State's not played all that well this season, obviously at 4-5, but Walker has. He averages 20 points per game. He got it going, and it looked like they might have been running away from it. And I just noted, okay, what what do you do? Do you double team him? What are we going to do here? And they put Sam Hoiberg on him, and I thought he did a good job of at least kind of limiting that. And Walker no longer kind of was at that kind of takeover stage in the game. So Sam Hoiberg contributions, and then the other guys to mention too. Eli Rice played in the first half. Notable, of course, because he just hasn't logged too many minutes in the last couple of games. Hit a 3, so a good work there. Again, I think the idea with him is improve his defense. More minutes will come along. Pretty not a unique thing, I suppose, for a freshman. Oftentimes the case, you have to improve your defense to get more playing times. And then Matar Joe also playing a little bit of a role tonight because Josiah Alec was out. The only one I did not mention so far tonight is Jamarcus Lawrence. It was his birthday. Congratulations to Jamarcus. Happy birthday. You get a birthday win. I am interested, however, in his play. He only ended up with 2 turnovers tonight, coming off of 7, but 1 of 5 from the floor. And I'm just kind of wondering, as I spoke about Gary earlier in the show, playing his way into the starting lineup. I'm not ready to push the button and get Jamarcus out, but maybe he could be a spark off the bench. Maybe he still needs to be their primary ball handler, but it hasn't quite felt like it's completely worked out quite yet with what they're doing there. But he's kind of got his on and off games. Today on his birthday might not have been his best game, not particularly bad, but he did get the win. So I'm sure he's most happy for that more than anything. As we welcome in Austin Overman, who was at the game. Big time win for Nebraska, of course, 77-70 over Michigan State. Austin, what are your initial thoughts from the victory?
Biggest thing that stands out to me, Bach, is the poise that Nebraska played with. Got down a little bit early. Michigan State would go on a couple runs. 7-0, the largest run for Michigan State, but it happened at least 2 times that I can remember. And Walker had a 6-0 run there. It was 60-57 Nebraska, and then all of a sudden it's 63-60 Michigan State. But the response from this group, like, yes, they hit shots. That obviously helps when you respond that way. You need to do that. But I think Nebraska, for the most part, did a solid job buckling down on the defensive end, especially late with the offense-defense subs with Hoiberg and Lawrence, and even Tominaga involved somewhat there. But as much as the shooting numbers were nice, the rebounds were even, turnovers were limited and even across both teams, it's that poise, that resiliency that stopped Michigan State runs and got Nebraska started on a few. There were a couple moments, especially early, and then after that Walker run, you're like, okay, we've seen this story before for Nebraska. They'll fight, and then they'll fall apart. Or, okay, they hit their 4-minute scoring drought. This is where it all comes unraveled. It didn't tonight, and that's a huge improvement from Creighton and from Minnesota, where the other team found something that worked. Nebraska wasn't able to respond. Tonight, though, I really sensed that enthusiasm, right, from Keisei Tominaga coming in off the bench a few times, hitting some big shots. Juwan Gary with some energy, but the steadiness and that presence of Bryce Williams, of Rink Mast to really lock things down on the wing and on the interior. Nebraska never got rattled. Neither did Michigan State. This was a very well-played basketball game both ways. 2 veteran teams trading punches until like the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, not a whole lot of turnovers in this game for either team. Neither team hit double digits. Not a whole lot of fouls called. So kind of a clean game there. Again, of course, until the end, and we were kind of playing free throws to extend the game there. But we've only got a few more minutes left here on the post-game show. Well, of course, get your happy on with Ricky Simmons coming up next. So we have to jump to big picture pretty quickly. And so that's what I'm going to ask you, though. How big of a difference is 1-1 in conference play instead of 0-2? While you kind of get these 3 non-con games, of course, Kansas State, all that, get win those games too. But for conference play particularly, how important is it not to be in that 0-2 hole?
Huge. It's unspeakably big. I mean, even if Nebraska was still 7-3 with a loss tonight, the vibes, the conversations around this team are so incredibly different. Well, I still think this is going to be a quality win by the end of the year. I don't think Michigan State is headed in the toilet. I really don't. That's a good team. They've got some stuff to figure out, especially that post rotation. They didn't play with any posts, for the last 4.5 minutes of this game or so. Went small with Hall and Carr at the 4 and 5. But all that to say, it makes me feel better that maybe this was just a 2-game funk that Nebraska snapped itself out of, found a way to make plays, and Nebraska, had to change the narrative. That's really what had to happen. Now, 1 win doesn't do that, right? Nebraska still has 2 clunkers, but now I think you have 2 kind of resilient games to pair with it. Duquesne at home, and then you also throw this one in that conversation. So being 1-1 is much better than being 0-2. I think this is a win that will carry weight later on.
And of course, another question that I kind of broached the topic. Gary led the team tonight in points. He was inserted in the starting lineup. I think he's been a nice sixth man. You'd like to get that spark.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you might kind of think about keeping him in the starting lineup after tonight?
It's a thought. What Gary and Alec do is similar but different, right? Both guys have some of that versatility on defense. Gary's a little better on the perimeter. Alec, I would say, is better inside. The shooting is, I'm going to call it a wash. I think Juwan Gary's the better shooter. I like his shot posture and selection a little better this year, but it still comes and goes, right? He's still streaky as a shooter. I like the steadiness of Josiah Alec mentally, but maybe what that starting lineup needs is one more energy guy to pair with Keisei Tominaga. So I don't think Nebraska can necessarily go wrong. I think both guys bring enough to the table in that conversation. Not to be a prisoner of the moment, I do kind of like the look with Juwan Gary, though. I think that little bit of vertical pop, I think the little bit more shooting in the ability to guard on the perimeter, that was huge because you saw Juwan Gary guarding AJ Hoggard to start tonight. He was on Hall and it was Williams on Hoggard, but Gary got the Hoggard assignment quite a few times. And I think that Nebraska needs to focus on taking away the perimeter first. My biggest worry coming into tonight was Walker and Hoggard cooking. Now, they did, right? They combined for 29 points on 12 of 28 shooting, which is really good. But I do like the more perimeter-oriented game that Juwan Gary brings. Alec can do it. I think there's a little bit more consistency, and that will help Nebraska on defense with a little more perimeter athleticism, but also on offense. I think it'll keep spacing a little better.
Another question. Bryce Williams, the last four halves, I think it's been 17 points, 1 point, 0 points, 14 points. How do you kind of get that consistency out of him? Obviously, when he's good, he's filling up the bucket, but you have, it's just, I just laid it out there. There's points where he's not on the attack enough. 7 field goal attempts tonight. Got to win, but do you think that's enough?
Yeah, I think it is. It's different when you look at these two games, right? Because in the first half at Minnesota, Bryce Williams got Nebraska out to that lead. Then he got frustrated in his head a little bit, didn't get the same look. Some of that's on him, some of that's on Nebraska. Tonight, Nebraska didn't really need Bryce Williams in that first half, right? They're going back and forth with guards. Mast had a couple. Hoiberg and Wiltshire had those big threes. So Nebraska didn't necessarily need Bryce Williams' offense in the first half, but they did in the second half, right? He was the one bringing the ball up. He hit that pull-up three-pointer to either give Nebraska the lead or extend it. So, yes, I mean, ideally, you would like 7 points in each half. That consistency looks better. But the difference between Minnesota and Michigan State for Bryce Williams is that he stepped up in the second half when Nebraska needed it tonight. Nebraska could have fed him more in the second half against Minnesota. I think he was opportunistic tonight. I think he took advantage of the chances he had in the second half after other guys went off. So even though it is the same kind of discrepancy from half to half, I think tonight was the right way for Bryce Williams to go about that discrepancy.
I like how you broke that down. Next week is their next game, Kansas State. At Kansas State, of course, old Big 8, Big 12 rival. Austin, you're going to be heading down there,
I'll
right?
be in Manhattan.
That'll be some exciting times there. 2 p.m. tip-off. One question about that I have for you. Maybe, I don't want to say it wasn't the major excuse, but one thought from a few Husker fans before the Creighton game is they took a week off. Another week off here. Do you think that that's going to be a problem? What do you think Nebraska has to do maybe to overcome that as they are going into this week off now on a high note?
They're relatively healthy. I mean, obviously you get Josiah Alec back, which I think will be an interesting, re-addition. I assume he'll be fine. He was walking around okay before the game, so I think it was just precautionary for the most part. Wait to see what Fred Hoiberg says about that for sure in post-game. I still like the idea of a midweek game. I think this is such a rhythm-based team that a game in the midweek would be nice, but it's kind of like what we were talking about, Bach, with football, right? I didn't love the idea of Illinois on a short week after Michigan, but then they come out and they beat Northwestern after the bye week. I kind of wish the bye week would have been flipped. It's all in Nebraska's court, literally and figuratively, for how they handle this week off. They weren't perfect. They were certainly better tonight than they had been. So it's on them to figure out what worked. and find a way to carry that over on the road where you have to create your own energy. The crowd was fantastic tonight at Pinnacle Bank Arena. A little sleepy during the game. Credit the players for giving the crowd a reason to stick around and be in that game. But even though it's only 2.5 hours away, the Octagon's going to be rocking in Manhattan on Sunday. Nebraska is going to be that man in the arena, kind of alone. So it's up to this team to find a way to carry the energy from Lincoln down to Manhattan in a week.
One final note, leading scorer for the first 6 games of Nebraska was a different person. They were able to snap that at some point when Rick Mass was the leading scorer twice in the first 8 games or so. But the last, what is it now? 6 games, I believe, they've had a different leading scorer. Or maybe it's the last 4 games, but that's just something to note. This team, you kind of, that's part of it. You never kind of know who's going to step up, but you need that consistency out of all of them as this season progresses. I still think this team can put together a heck of a season. Once again, I kind of see tonight as getting that Minnesota game back, because that's the one they're kind of supposed to win either way. Or you can look at it the other way. You know, you lose one on the road. That happens in the Big Ten. Protect home court. They got it done. I think either way, 1-1 in Big Ten play, as we were talking about earlier, very crucial for Nebraska. We better get on out of here, because it is time for Get Your Happy On Hour, coming up next with Ricky Simmons. Once again, Nebraska will take on Kansas State next week at 2 p.m. on Sunday, and we'll have your post-game show. I think once again, kind of blending into maybe Husker Rewind. I'll have to kind of see at what point, but into the Sunday afternoon shows that we already have programmed here, which are fantastic on 93.7 The Ticket. Huskers get the win 77-70 over Sparty. Go on to 8-2 on the year, 1-1 in conference play. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon. Stay tuned for Get Your Happy On Hour with Ricky Simmons. Coming up next.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top shelf liquor to crowd favorite beer, Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
There's only one place this holiday season to shop for the sports fan in your life and get cash back for slightly used sports items you don't need anymore. Play It Again Sports. Check out their selection of new and used items, including home fitness equipment like treadmills, exercise bikes, and ellipticals. And get your lift with free weights, benches, and racks to add to your home gym. And don't forget, if you have anything slightly used to trade in, they'll give you instant cash. Holiday shopping starts and ends at Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Eagle Chassis are back and better than ever. New owner Mike Boston, who has been building Eagle Chassis for the last 2.5 years, will be using the same high-quality raw materials and equipment that Eagle Chassis have always been made with. Located in Lincoln, Nebraska, Eagle Motorsports LLC will continue to provide sprint car teams with the safest, most durable chassis there are. They will give drivers the strength, flexibility, and durability that they need to win on race night. If you're looking for a new chassis or need repairs made to your current one, call Mike at 402-826-0302.
Hello, this is Mary Pat Waite. I've had the privilege of working with Lincoln families as their realtor for more than 31 years, and I'm so proud to be associated with MP Dodge Real Estate. For me, your